Welcome, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Denise Siegel. I am the CEO and curator of Living Healthy List and the host of the Wonder Series. Now, the Wonder Series is a monthly forum where we encourage you, our audience, our readers, our clients, our patients to join us and basically think outside the box. The Wonder Series is a safe space where you can ask questions and get the support that you need to live that happy, healthy lifestyle that you are looking for. So today's topic, it is May, and May is Women's Health Month. So our topic today is, I wonder what it is about women's health that I need to know that no one's ever told me. So I'm really excited. I have three experts with us today who are going to talk a little bit on a couple of different topics, actually quite a few different topics when it comes to women's health. And I will ask each of them to just to introduce themselves and tell us where they are and where they are located. Dr. Jessica Hayman, if you would start for us, please.
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Jessica Hayman. I'm a naturopathic doctor in the state of Arizona. I live in Sedona. I have a private practice, and I've been practicing for about 10 years. And I focus on preventative medicine and chronic disease. I try to really find the root cause of the issues in all of my patients. It's not about masking symptoms. It's trying to uncover what's really going on biochemically and in their environment to really seek out what these patients actually need. And I love what I do. I love my patients, and I love living where I live. It's a great place for our medicine.
And you're in Sedona, right?
Yes.
Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you for that. Lorraine, I'm going to go to you, please. Lorraine Miano, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. I am a holistic health and hormone coach, and I focus on menopausal, perimenopausal, and menopausal women. I want them to know that there is life after menopause and that they can live a magical life with the right lifestyle choices, the right positive mindset. I am one of those postmenopausal women. I'll be 62 in 5 days. So I know what it's like to have gone through perimenopause, reached menopause, and now am living a good life. I also wrote a book, The Magic of Menopause, a holistic guide to get your happy back. So I help more women with that. And I use resources on my website, self-guided programs, different blog posts about menopause, and different resources that women can get on my website.
Awesome, thank you. And they can also find some of those things on Living Healthy List because you are one of our amazing experts. Let's see, where are you, Stacy? My thing moved around. Miss Stacy LeQuire, Dr. Stacy LeQuire, if you tell us a little bit about you, please. Oh, we can't hear you. Hold on. What happened?
She's not muted. It's something in her system.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't show the little mute.
No, it doesn't. I just noticed.
Okay, let me try that.
There
we
we
go.
go.
Better?
Yep.
Okay, it muted me somehow on this end. Perfect. Well, thank you. Dr. Stacy LeQuire with Vitality Chiropractic. We are in Rochester, Minnesota, and we are a family wellness practice. However, you know, women's health is near and dear. Who is it not of us women? As we, you know, kind of go through life and with the many things we juggle, it becomes a priority. So a lot of times they say you learn by working on yourself, and that's certainly true for myself. And so, yeah, we're a family practice. We see kiddos, we see pregnant moms, and we certainly, I think this might be the case in most chiropractic offices, we see more women than men. So here I am, contributing what I can. I'm glad I'll be on to learn from the others who I'm very excited to hear what you guys have to say. So I hope I'm going last. But I'm really thankful, Denise. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. No, actually, Stace, I have you going first. But if you'd like to flip-flop, we can certainly do that.
Well, you know, it doesn't matter. I can do that too. I just know they're probably going to cover a lot of the things that I might touch on, but I'll stick to, I'll just ease around those edges, and they can correct me if I'm misspoken on anything. But
sounds good. Well, first, before I have you start with your 10-minute piece, I'd like to welcome everybody who is here with us live. Thank you for taking the time for joining us. Anytime you have a question, you can raise your hand, you can type it in the chat. Typically how we do this is we'll have each expert give their kind of 10-minute presentation, but we do want this to be a conversation. We will have Q&A time after each speaker, and then of course, at the end there should be some time. But if you have questions, certainly let us know, like I said, by raising your hand, type it into the group chat, and we can have a great conversation and learn from one another. What I found with so many of these Wonder Series is our audience has questions, but they also have great insight as well. So please, we welcome your insight as well. So Dr. Stacy LeQuire, if you would, let's talk a little bit about stress and movement and sleep.
well, yeah, let's talk about that. Those are huge topics. And when you had, you know, I had this in the back of my mind, and when you texted me the other night, I was like, okay, I'll put some, you know, like now it has to come together in some way that makes sense. So hopefully I was able to do that, and I'll probably just run out of time is what'll happen, because it's a huge topic, right? I mean, that's all of it. And so one thing, you know, as chiropractors, we see our patients on a more regular basis than they might see their medical doctor, right? So we get to see them over time, and we get to see how things are changing. They have a lot of questions. So as much as, you know, the majority of my day is spent working physically with people, you know, I love when I get the opportunity to help people with some of those other challenges. And so, you know, when we do an intake, you know, some things that I can't ignore, and that's, you know, part of staying in your lane sometimes is, hey, just do what you're good at. But you can't ignore when people aren't sleeping. You know, if they have terrible gut health issues going on, it's something that's going to inhibit their getting well with your care. So we have to address some of those things to some degree. And, you know, I would love it. I would love having more health coaches and more functional medicine practitioners right in town here, because a lot of times that is really, to dive deep, what people need. But I can help. We can help. We do help quite a few people with some of those basic life choices. And so that's what I look at is, you know, what do we do on a daily basis? It doesn't have to be super complicated. There's a lot of people who do well with some simple interventions, which is great. And, you know, it's probably the 80-20 rule. 80% of people can do some simple good things with their diet and their sleep and their movement and get really good results. And it's those 20% that get really difficult. So when it comes to, you know, I keep getting muted.
I just did that by mistake, sorry.
Oh, okay, that's okay. So, you know, when I thought about which one of these things takes precedence, there's really none of them do, but sleep is really important. So I'm gonna start with that. And I made a few notes here, but, you know, we're recommended to get about 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And for those of us who sleep well, we just completely take that for granted. But so many people, I was just asking patients this morning, like, hi, how are you sleeping? It's on my mind right now, so let me ask you about that. And a lot of people, otherwise healthy people, have a really hard time with this. So the thing to remember, and again, this may be as far as I get is talking about sleep, but is that we set the stage all day long for sleep, right? It starts in the morning. You know, if you can get sun on your body or your face, or especially your eyes, your eyelids, right away in the morning, you're really helping set that circadian rhythm for the day, which is going to help you at the end of the day go to sleep. You know, the other thing to consider is, do you have a routine for winding down at night? Like, what is your habitual routine? Do you have a cup of tea? Do you read? Do you, you know, flip through your phone right till the last second? You know, and sometimes I'm guilty of that. And, you know, but that can really affect our sleep, that blue light that we get from screens. So that's another thing to just be aware of. And I think a lot of people know that, hey, this screen blue light is not good for my sleep pattern. But if you don't know that, that's a really good place to start, is just cutting that screen time out in the evenings. Let's see, you know, we talked about getting that daylight. That's so important. Even 30 minutes of, if it's not in the morning, that's okay. Sometime during the day, getting outside, maybe not having sunglasses on, letting that sunlight do what it does to our brains, which is pretty amazing. All right, so what happens too at night? Caffeine is a big one. I think a lot of people know, hey, I should look at my caffeine intake if I'm not sleeping. It has a really long half-life in our body. So, you know, some of us are more efficient at breaking down caffeine than others. If you're one of those people that doesn't, it could very much be keeping you awake, even if you had it before noon. Sorry, I'm talking really fast here. So at night, what happens is our body goes from, you know, excitatory neurotransmitters that keep us awake and alert, and it needs to downshift, and it needs to break those down. And so some things that happen or that we need, and again, the nutrition experts can touch on this, I'm sure, but, you know, we need B vitamins for that to happen. We need magnesium. And a lot of times when people think sleep issues right away, they're thinking melatonin. And it's really rare. I don't carry that. Although I know people take it all the time. People are telling me they have melatonin. I'm like, you know, I usually start with habits and a little bit of magnesium, especially if people have restless legs or they're having leg cramps. That seems to be kind of magical for people. And so we have, and I always joke about magnesium, it's my favorite. And so we have like 4 different types in the office at any given time. But anyway, we want to break down those neurotransmitters. We want to start to get into that calming state for sleep. So the other thing is looking at, you know, how do you eat right before bed or at night even? And so that's one thing that sometimes people don't think about is, hey, if you load up on a big bowl of popcorn or you have a bowl of ice cream, which is how I grew up, right? I mean, we just, middle of dairy country here, ice cream every night for a snack. Well, I could probably get away with that when I was a kid. May not have been the best choice, but what happens then is when you're sleeping, you're going to have that blood sugar crash, just like you would if you had, you know, a Pop-Tart for breakfast and at 10 o'clock you're tired. And so when you're sleeping and that blood sugar crash happens, you wake up. Okay, so this is those folks that wake up in the middle of the night, maybe right away their mind is racing, and they're really having a stress response to low blood sugar. So taking a look at that and making sure that you're eating like a complex, healthier carb at night with maybe some fat. Now, I'm not a low-fat person. If you are, fine, but I'm definitely not afraid to put some coconut oil or grass-fed butter on my sweet potato or, you know, whatever it might be. But almond butter, a piece of fruit, those sorts of things. Getting that fat and complex carbs can really help stabilize that blood sugar through the night. This alone is really helpful for a lot of people, just to help them get that sleep. So, you know, and there's other vitamins and minerals that can be deficient if you're having trouble sleeping. There's a huge, and I didn't really know this. I love vitamin D. It's one of my favorites, you know, that and magnesium. But it's, there's a huge study on how vitamin D can cause poor sleep issues. So generally, if you're really low in vitamin D, which a lot of people are, once you get it to a certain level, you should be, you know, that effect goes away a little bit. But if you're really low in vitamin D, that could be affecting your sleep. So those are just a few. Now, one of the things, you know, obviously what I do all day is we adjust people. You know, the way we look at it as wellness chiropractors is, hey, your spine is what keeps you upright and you want it to last as long as you last. So that's sort of our approach. But also, you know, each time you get adjusted, they've shown this is in research, and they look at heart rate variability, which is just a sign of stress, but it shifts you into that growth, healing, and repair part of our nervous system. And so that alone, sometimes people will say, wow, I had the best night of sleep that I've had in a while after they get an adjustment. So, you know, I wouldn't ignore that for sure. And so spinning off of that into kind of that stress response area, you know, we have the brakes and we have the gas pedal in our nervous system, and they generally don't operate at the same time, just like you wouldn't do that in your car at the same time. So if we're in defense mode, which sadly right now, I mean, the news and social media and is leaning us in that direction, right? Like it's kind of pushing us towards that fight or flight response. You know, we want to be able to put the brakes on, and the brakes are your parasympathetic nervous system. As chiropractors, that's our upper cervical area and the sacrum. Favorite areas to work on, especially in someone who's stressed. We might only work in those areas just to shift that for them. So, you know, we've heard about, I mean, many of us have heard about the HPA axis, right? That used to be, we called it adrenal fatigue. We know that that's not necessarily an accurate description, but it's really dysfunction of that that HPA axis. And basically what that does, the HPA axis, is it links our nervous system to our endocrine system. And so I'm not going to get into we'll be talking all day about that, but all the details of that. But it's basically how we can take a problem like stress and have it affect hormones, right? Or we can have it affect, hunger and digestion, and all these things that are really complex in the body with our hormones can be affected by our nervous system saying, oh my gosh, I'm stressed right now. And so, talking about things that we can do, and gosh, I wonder how many blog posts there are on stress. We're probably all reading them right now, even like, oh my gosh, what the heck do I do when I'm stuck home with my kids all day, trying to get them on Zoom calls and get them through their schoolwork. But in general, some of the things that we can look at, let me flip through here, are, the things that make the most sense for us, getting enough sleep. So that's where it kind of comes back to those things, getting proper nutrition, getting enough sleep, prayer, meditation. They've kind of shown, and I can thank Luann on here. She's got me in a really good meditation groove right now. But even 5 to 10 minutes of just mindfulness can really help shift us out of stress. We're unique. Other animals don't worry about the future or think about the past, but as humans, we're lucky to be able to do that, I guess, right? But it can cause a lot of undue amounts of stress. And so if we can look at those things, creating good boundaries, hopping off social media, those are all things. Movement, and I'm going to touch on that if I have time. We'll touch on a little bit of movement, and it's not going to be exercises. It's going to be, how to sort of a philosophy of looking at movement. But, those are the types of things we want to be doing, getting good rest, taking good care of ourselves. So movement. I'm like missing a page here, but that's okay. When we look at movement, one of the people I love to, and I'm reading her book right now, and have another one of her books. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Katie Bowman's work. Oh, she's so great. But anyway, she talks about how if we were to look at our movement patterns in our culture from the perspective, like, what if we didn't have our modern appliances? What if we didn't have all of our conveniences? Because exercising is great, but that's what we tend to do, is we tend to be sedentary, and then we go and we like hit it hard for 30 to 60 minutes a day, right? And that's not really how we're supposed to do it, right? In fact, sometimes over-exercise can really put you in a stress state too. So you got to take a look at that. If you're really stressed, a nice walk might be the best thing for you. But if we didn't have all of those conveniences, what would we be doing? We'd be walking more. We'd probably be hauling water. We'd be carrying our kids, maybe even on our back. We'd be sitting on the ground. So we'd be getting up and down multiple times a day, which creates a sense of balance and also lower body strength. So, I challenge people just to kind of look around and say, hey, what am I not doing because I have a stove and I have, running water and I have, all these soft, cushy couches in my house, which aren't really doing us a whole lot of favors. So, so those are the sorts of things, walking, moving, bending, lifting. She talks about how, we underuse and overuse, especially our upper body, meaning we don't do enough stuff with both arms, pulling, lifting, hauling ourselves up, but we do a lot of stuff with one hand. Or, maybe we use this hand so we carry everything on our left side because we're right-handed. So we create all these imbalances. So movement is, for me, is looking at ways to add movement into your everyday routine. And, back to the sitting on the floor, just, try it. If we don't do it, you eventually can't do it. That's what I found. And I tell patients that too, try to get into a deep squat. You don't have to start with, a full squat, but if you stop doing that, you're eventually not gonna be able to do it at all. And that's like such an important position for our physiology that we kind of have lost. So I don't want to keep going over my time. Where am I at, Denise? I'm
going to cut you off in a second. I just wanted to have you finish this.
Okay, well, the last thing I would say too is a real quick breathing technique for stress. I'll just share that because what we want to do is fire up that vagus nerve, and things that do that are like humming, gargling. If you want to walk around gargling, that's a great, thing to do. But socializing, getting out in nature, those are things that naturally take our body into that rest, digest part of our nervous system. But also I like to teach people how to do just a 3-6 breathing pattern or 4-8. It's basically doubling your exhale. So you breathe in, a count of 3, you pause, and then you let that breath out for a count of 6. Or depending on your breath cycle, it could be 4 breathing in and 8 breathing out. But basically you're doubling that exhale, and that also really shifts you into that growth, healing, repair. And that's ultimately, you know, as a generalist here, and I'm sure everybody's gonna be very specific, but as a generalist, that is like, you know, those are some of the really important things that we can do every day just to calm the nervous system down.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And when you and I were talking the other day and you said these 3 topics, for me, they all go together. The sleep, the movement, and the stress. You know, if we're stressed out, we're not sleeping well. If we're not sleeping well, we're too tired to move. And it's interesting. I just got Katie Bowman's book in the mail yesterday. Another one of our experts on Living Healthy List, Tracy Sider, she actually has worked with Katie. So I'm quite intrigued.
Oh, amazing.
I'm in a place, you know, at my age where I'm kind of going, okay, everyone says that at however old I am, 49, that I'm supposed to be exercising differently and moving differently. So even as someone who is, you know, well-versed in health and wellness, this is even a new place for me. So it's really exciting to connect with Tracy and to Katie Bowman. So I'm excited that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
Does anybody have questions? Because I know I had one, but I want anyone who has a question or a comment to please add. I'll just read this from Letitia. She says, thanks, Stacy. My key takeaway was the information about not eating before bed. I found the stress response to the food resulting in a blood sugar crash. That was actually one of the things that I had not really ever thought about. Like when people, you know, we're always told, you know, don't have a lot of carbs before you go to bed. And that's just something I've, you know, in health and wellness, I've always been told and done the research. You know, we know it's sugar, but I never really thought it would be something that would wake people up in the middle of the night. But it actually, once you said that, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so many people. Well, and the thing about, you could have protein before bed, but protein kind of drives that more excitatory pattern too. So, you know, having a steak before you go to bed, we all know that probably doesn't help us sleep very well. So it is, you know, the healthy carbs are kind of the key, and maybe not too many, and people probably have to experiment with that individually.
Yeah, probably not the ice cream or the popcorn, like you said.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. All the good stuff.
Thanks, Stacy. Let us move on a little bit. So we're going to go from sleeping and moving, and we did actually, Stacy did touch on a little bit about food, but we're going to move on to some other types of questions about women's health that I know these were things I still have a million questions because I'm going through menopause at this stage in my life. I've been perimenopausal for 11 years. That's been fun. But but in the beginning, I really struggled to find answers. And actually anyone who would even open the door and say, oh, this is what's happening. This is what could, you know, this is normal. These are things that you can do to help with symptoms, because yes, symptoms are, you know, we know that people get symptoms, but they don't have to be life-changing and horrible. So Lorraine, I'm gonna just have you talk and, you know, tell us, you know, what are the questions about, you know, women's health and perimenopause and menopause that we don't know, but we need to know.
Okay. Very recently, just in the last week, and it's still ongoing, I have started a survey, my menopause experience. And I wasn't shocked to discover that 80% of women had no idea about menopause before going into it, anything about it. Probably 87% said that they learned about it on their own through the internet, Google. They said that their doctors were not helpful. Another, probably close to 90% said they did not get the help that they needed from their gynecologist. So I know that there are so many myths and misconceptions that surround menopause because women are not getting the information that they need. And they're fearful. When you see all of the negative media, if you Google menopause, the pictures that come up are women that are like sweating and miserable and whatever. And some of those things, yes, they do happen. And Denise, as you said, it's often our perception that'll determine our experience with menopause. And I want women to be positive going into these years. Menopause is actually one day. It's the 12-month anniversary of when your menses cease. Before that, you're perimenopausal, and after that date, you are postmenopausal. And during all of that time, hormones are fluctuating. A lot of postmenopausal women think that once they reach that anniversary, that now they're not going to have any symptoms, and they'll tell me, oh, I'm beyond that. And they may not have hot flashes, but they're having the insomnia, they're having the weight gain, they're having the anxiety and depression, and they don't realize that is directly result from their hormone imbalances. And although it's common to have these symptoms, it's not normal. And there are plenty of things that women can do. Specifically, as a health coach, I guide women holistically, but I'm not adverse to hormone replacement because there's so many women that benefit from hormone replacement. I tend to help the women that have maybe a family health history or personal health history that prevents them from doing that, female cancers and other health, autoimmune disease and different things that they may have side effects from taking those hormones. But I want women to know that there is help, there is holistic help, and many of the things that they can try as far as many of the things that Stacy said, easy movement, yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, things that don't stress your body. A lot of women don't realize that they keep the weight on, and then they realize, well, what am I not doing that could possibly contribute? So some of the things that they do are excessive, like CrossFit, excessive exercise, which puts stress on, especially at this age, 45 and above, puts stress on your body, raises your cortisol levels, and prevents you from losing the weight and keeps your hormones out of balance. Two of the major things that cause the hormone imbalance are stress and sugar. So basically what you are eating, I like to say, keep it simple, sister. It's basically simple exercise, whole foods, eliminate your processed foods, keep the sugar to a minimum, alcohol, caffeine. I know we talked about don't make me give up my wine, but if you want a good night's sleep, sometimes you have to give up the wine and maybe just save it for a glass on the weekends because it does wake you up and it prevents that REM sleep where you're getting that restorative sleep during the evening. Other things that women can do are take adaptogen herbs. So that will help with the stress level, since stress is a big indicator for hormone imbalance. And some of them are ashwagandha, holy basil, which is also called tulsi, and you can get a tea that way. Rhodiola, which is good, an anti-aging herb. Ginseng for your mind and brain function. And maca is a great one, which increases energy and helps with libido and sexual function. And that's a good one for men as well. So maca root. There's another one, which I think was more of an estrogen, phytoestrogen, which is Pararia mirifica. And if you know Dr. Northrup, she has her own brand of that. I think it's called Amata or something like that. And I've had clients use that with great success as far as preventing hot flashes and that kind of thing. But I would say if you can basically concentrate on your diet, on the exercise that you need, which will then help you get the sleep that you need. And of course, I'm not one of the doctors here, so I take to both of the doctors. I can't prescribe. So what I'm saying is check with your healthcare provider before taking any supplements, especially if you are taking any other medications or hormone replacement. There are other things that can, and I know that Dr. Hayman will probably discuss this, but the toxins in our environment, many of them are xenoestrogens, so they will affect our estrogen balance and may cause estrogen dominance and all the problems that come with that. So I want women to know that although they can do the hormone replacement, even if they are doing hormone replacement, taking some of these steps to help themselves to really get those hormones in balance will help them have a better menopause. Surround yourself with positive people, positive inspirations, because I've been on many of these support group boards for menopause where there's a lot of, can I say, bitching going on, which, yes, we should accept where we are and the symptoms that we're having, but a lot of them are creating a lot of fear and anxiety in other women because of their experience. And I want women to know that everyone is different. Where we are, we can start where we are and take our steps from there to make our experience the best that it can be. It's not inevitable that you'll have hot flashes, a dry vagina, decrease in libido and all that. There's help. And you just need to ask for it. And if you aren't getting it from the doctor that you're going to, then seek out another physician who could possibly help you, or a health coach. Especially, I love functional medicine doctors. I love to refer my clients to them because I know that they'll get to the bottom of what's going on instead of masking the symptoms. I know a lot of women that are getting anti-anxiety meds for hot flashes. So there are plenty of other things that can be done before we have to take those steps.
Yeah, it's definitely perception is a big part of it. And like I mentioned earlier, I started with hot flashes at the age of 37. And at that point, had gone to the doctor, to the gynecologist and he was an older man and basically dismissed me and said, oh, at your age, it's just a phase, you'll be fine.
I have had clients say the same thing. Grin and bear it. This is what happens at this age. And she left the office crying because she felt there was no help. And so this is the rest of my life. There's help.
And actually, the situation that I went through with that at 37 and looking for information on the internet, which was so overwhelming. There was, literally everything from, oh, this is normal to, oh my God, you're dying, and everything in between. Like it just didn't seem like anyone had good, honest, reliable information. And actually, I think that was the seed that was planted about Living Healthy List back when I was 37. And we launched Living Healthy List a year ago because I started to notice more and more that we have some amazing experts in all of the different fields, but it was so hard to kind of sift through all of the information and find the Lorraine Mianos of the world, the Stacy LeQuires, the Jessica Haymans of the world. And really be able to say, hey, I need help. And actually the expert saying, I can help you. Let's have a conversation.
It's true. You need to know we are out there. There is support. They don't have to go through this alone. And if they really have that positive mindset, then they'll be successful in what they try. Of course, there's commitment, there's work to be done. There's no magic pill. I wish there were. You have to commit to taking the steps to make yourself feel better and live that life that you really want. You have a third of your life at least ahead of you in your menopause years. You can pursue passions. You may be at a time in your life where you're more financially stable. Your children have left the nest. Then again, there are the women who are in the middle. They're still raising their teenagers and also taking care of their aging parents. And that puts a lot of stress on this age group. So you need to seek out help, therapy. That helps tremendously. If you want to do some of the things that Stacy talked about, breathing, meditation, all of those things to kind of calm your body and really get you mindful about where you are in your health journey. Mm-hmm. There's so many years left ahead of you to pursue all of your passions, really. And I encourage women to embrace these years, not be fearful of them. Menopause is not a disease. It's the natural phase of life. I call it, it's time for the second talk, right? Puberty was the first talk. This is the second talk. And it's kind of like you're going through that whole hormone craziness again. So embrace it, make it a magical life.
Mm-hmm. You made a good point when you talk about stress. Stress affects every aspect of our lives. And, whether we believe that or not, the stress, menopause, the symptoms causes stress, and you have stress with other things, and it really can just, build on to itself. And so I think you're right. When it comes to, your overall health, obviously menopause is something that you're dealing with, but it really is that your overall health really can dictate, how you manage menopause. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually, that's kind of a good phrase, how to manage it, because we're all going to go through it. All of us here on the call are women. We're all going to go through it at some point.
One way or another.
Longer than others.
Perimenopause can last up to 15 years.
Yeah, I'm there. But I think it's really important because I know this was not a conversation that my mom and I had when I told her 12 years ago now. Is it really 12 years? I guess it would be. You know, that I started having these night sweats, and literally for 3 months I hadn't slept. She's like, "Oh, you got to go to your doctor. Something's wrong." And that's really how the conversation started. You know, was something was wrong. This is bad. Oh my God. And looking back, had we actually had more of a conversation, and this is, I should have asked her, what did you go through? How did it work for you? And I think as women, especially in this day and age, you know, we say everything on social media, anything that comes to our mind, yet these are questions that we really need to know the answers to, and we're afraid to ask. So I would say, ladies, ask the questions. Thanks, Lorraine. Anybody have anything to add or question? Mary Jane, let me unmute you.
Okay,
Please.
thank you. Hi, I am a patient of Dr. Hayman's, who I consider a healer as much as a doctor. But just to kind of throw in what happened for me, I hit my last period at 50 and started out not so bad, kept getting worse. Turned out I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So my symptoms, I was not clear on what was menopause, what was fibromyalgia, what was chronic back pain. And so the journey, I'm 60, almost 66. So chiropractor helped, trying lots of things that you talked about helped, but then it just, anyway,
Yeah.
it's quite the journey, and hormone replacement, and what I've learned from Dr. Hayman, who will obviously share.
And thank you for saying that too, because I know recently a client said that she was experiencing what she thought was perimenopause, but indeed had thyroid issues.
Yeah.
So it does pay to be sure your doctor is listening and, you know, expressing yourself and really doing the tests, the panels that they need to do for you, and pay attention, because some of them do mimic other things.
Well, 15 years ago, there's a lot less willingness to, my doctor, you know, well, let me give you the name of a psychiatrist. That was
right.
The answer. I eventually found a doctor. I was living in Illinois. I found a doctor who was an MD, but she explored everything. And so she got me recognizing that I wasn't crazy and that, you know, it wasn't in my head. And,
yeah.
And then
unfortunately, there's still a lot of medical misogyny.
Yes.
I'm going to write an article about that, because you would think by the 21st century that we would have more of a handle on what's happening with menopause, and that they would be teaching about it in medical school than they are. And unfortunately, that's not happening. I think it's getting better. And I think maybe because there are more women possibly going into it, but there needs to be a lot of work done on that. Perimenopause, the term perimenopause only came about in the early 1990s, I believe. So prior to that, it was just basically, you know, take an anxiety, you're having depression, anxiety, whatever, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You know, nobody had a name for it.
Yeah.
Now we understand what is happening.
And you have to be kind of pushy with the doctor. If I've learned to not settle for, well, that test didn't show anything, and then hang up the phone. And then, okay, now what am I supposed to do? You just, you know, no, there's no next step. There was just, other than you're crazy. So,
well,
anyway,
thank goodness you found Jessica.
Yes, exactly. I've been very fortunate. The move to Sedona led me to her. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you sharing, Mary Jane, because I think, you know, the more women understand that it's a little different for everybody. And, you know, if you're not feeling right, there's a reason. So I think it's really important for everybody to, you know, to be their own health hero, and, you know, keep searching for the person who's going to listen, who's going to help you get to that next level. And, you know, if one test comes back negative, say, okay, maybe that's not it. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, Jessica does that for sure.
Well,
Mary Jane.
I'm just gonna, Miss Mary Jane, if you would please introduce Miss Jessica Hayman for us.
The healer of Sedona, Jessica Hayman.
Lovely.
Mary Jane. Mary Jane, we consider in our office Mary Jane to be the star on our Christmas tree. When we have, like, the pyramid of pumpkins, she's on the star.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's great. Mary Jane, thank you for being here then. I appreciate that.
So yes, I was going to focus mostly on thyroid, but I think, in terms of what we're discussing, I'm going to bring in the sex hormone aspect as well, because I see a lot of patients in their late 20s to 80s, but a lot of the patients in their 30s, 40s, I work with them because they're typically, just have had children or have had severe, chronic issues. So I like to kind of work with that population of patient to get them kind of set up for menopause. Because what I find is that when women are treated correctly medically, and when proper investigation is done when they're in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, a lot of these menopausal symptoms and signs that women start to experience in that era of life aren't as severe. So I've been doing this 10 years, so I've been able to see some of these transitions, which is really neat. And so my patient population, I look at every single woman that comes into my office, and I look at their sex hormones in a different manner. I look at their thyroid in a different manner. And why I do that is because typically when we're living in this life of toxins and chemicals and body burden and electromagnetics, these forces, outside forces on our body can create so much instability on our hormones. So the food that we eat, the toxins that we put on our skin, the electromagnetics from our computers and our phones and our TVs and all of these things, and the wiring and cell towers and whatnot, these all impact our biochemistry and our health. So it's my job to fully investigate people's living situations, what they're eating, breathing, putting on their skin is what I say. What are you eating, breathing, putting on your skin? What kind of thoughts are going in your mind? Because this is literally what creates the foundation of health. And so when we address all of these environmental aspects, from everything from, being exposed to Roundup. So Roundup is an endocrine disruptor. What's an endocrine disruptor? Endocrine disruptors are what mess up your sex hormones and your thyroid, in addition to creating cancer and other awful chronic diseases. So if a patient is continually eating non-organic foods on a daily basis, specifically those that are the most dirty, which we call the dirty dozen, that is impacting their endocrine function. And a lot of the toxins in our environment spike our estrogen levels. So then you have this imbalance of progesterone to estradiol. And when you have too much estrogen, that's what creates a lot of infertility in our world. And you see the rate of infertility increasing in the United States, and all of these infertility clinics popping up all over the place. And what I do treat a lot of preconception patients. So patients who are looking to conceive that were told by physicians that they can't conceive. You need to get IVF, which is about 30 grand, whatever it is, 20 grand. So, for me, and actually I just got a wonderful call last week from a patient who's in her 30s that said she just got pregnant. She was basically tossed off by the traditional medical community, saying she needed IVF. So, it's all about looking at what is going on in a woman's life, what obstacles to heal need to be removed in order for the body to fully heal and appreciate the biochemistry that's going on in their body. Because more often than not, there's major nutritional deficiencies, there's major gut issues. So a lot of what we call leaky gut or gut permeability issues that impact how we absorb these nutrients from our food. If you're eating food with Roundup, you can best be sure that your gut function is completely compromised. And also another really interesting component is that our gut produces the majority of our serotonin. So the serotonin is our feel-good neurotransmitter. I tell this to all my patients, and only a tiny percent of serotonin is made in the raphe nuclei of the brain. So if your gut function is not optimal, if you're eating foods that's degrading the gut lining and the villi in the small intestine, you are not going to get health. You have to create the foundation for health through the gastrointestinal system and removing obstacles to heal that are toxins in people's environment. Otherwise, you're going to be spinning your tail, just trying to, okay, you're having this symptom, let me throw that at it, or let me throw this at it. And I think even in our community, there's a lot of people that just, we practice what we call green allopathy. It's like, oh, well, you have a headache, here's some white willow bark, or you have this here, and they're giving you a natural therapeutic, but it's not getting to the root cause. This is root cause medicine, and this is where the traditional medical model has completely failed everybody, the doctors and the patients, because it's a pill for an ill. It's not looking at what we need to do to truly heal the body. So what I see a lot of, because we're exposed to all these endocrine disruptors, plasticizers, solvents, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, all of these things in our environment kind of add to what is known as this vessel. Okay, so as this vessel ages, the toxins increase. And as the toxins increase, you see a spillover effect when it gets to the top. And the spillover is when you start to see signs, symptoms, and disease processes. So in my world, that's autoimmunity, so thyroid autoimmunity, rheumatoid arthritis, hypothyroidism, hormone imbalances, sex hormone imbalances, so on and so forth. Chronic, fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgic pain. So it's really, what can we do to help these people empty their cup of toxins? And so, creating that environment in people's homes is so, so important. Even mold. A lot of people have mold in their home and they don't even know, and that could be creating issues. And believe it or not, in Arizona, we have a lot of mold problems in the old homes out here, which, we have to uncover. So there's a lot of, it's really just kind of like unraveling or peeling back the onion, right? Peeling back the layers of the onion to really get to what is at the center of that onion and what we need to do. So
what I think is interesting, a conversation that I've had with my mother and some of her friends is, when you talk about thyroid, underactive, overactive thyroid, they have, and my mother's in her late 70s, and she's really of a mindset, oh, it's just something that happens to you as you get older. And maybe that's true, but now, Jessica, as you were just saying, it's probably because of all of this stuff that's just compound, all these toxins and heavy metals and all these things that she's been exposed to her entire life, just getting to a point where the body is breaking down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like if a toxin comes into your body through your skin, your breath, your mouth, whatever, a toxin is something that is not biochemically pertinent in your body. So if you look at the biochemistry map of our body, it would fit across an entire wall. And so if there is no biochemical pertinence to a toxin, it gets stored into soft tissue. So if it can't fit into any of your biochemistry when it's in your circulation, it gets stored into fat cells, the brain, the bone, soft tissue organs. So, those over time, the storage, the body burden, as we call it, gets greater and greater and greater. So that, becomes a problem. That becomes a real problem. And we, in our clinic, what we do, one of the easiest ways that people can start liberating their body burden of toxicity through their fat cells is through like a far infrared sauna therapy. So saunas, far infrared in particular, because that can help create what's called lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat cells of that adipose tissue. Because most all these toxins are what is known as lipophilic. They're attracted to fat cells. So with the sauna, it increases the circulatory system and the lymphatics in conjunction with breaking down the fat cells and bringing them into the circulation. And then with a lot of our patients, we give them liver support. We have, to help kind of weekly bind those toxins so you can excrete them. But, bowel movement is key. And what Dr. Stacy was saying as far as magnesium is one of the most important nutrients, and having a good chelate with the magnesium that you have. So a good, like magnesium glycinate or magnesium bisglycinate or magnesium L-threonate. These are all great magnesium chelates that really do kind of fit into the biochemistry well and get absorbed well. So making sure the bowels are working well is key. So if a patient is constipated, if they're only having a bowel movement every 2 to 3 days, you're going to just be increasing toxic burden if you put them in a sauna. So they have to be eliminating 1 to 2 to 3 times a day in order to really get those toxins out through the bowels. So
I think it's an interesting concept, because it's something that we have to be so mindful of. And I know we talk mindfulness every now and then, because how do you get rid of all of these things that are in the environment and, in the supermarket and in the food supply? I'm in the Midwest, Dr. Stacy's in the Midwest, Letitia and Sandy were all in the Midwest. Right down the road, we kind of live in cow country. And we know, at some point in the season, we see the planes flying over, spraying everything. So how does one, I guess what is the level? Like, if you'd say, where do we start?
Well, start with what I tell patients is to go to the Environmental Working Group website, where you can literally look up any body care or cleaning product to look at the level of toxicity found in those products. So at least start in your home, because when you leave your home, there's not a whole lot that you can do other than move to a remote area. So what I suggest is patients look in their home, look at their cleaning products, their body care, making sure they're eliminating all that stuff and using things that aren't going to impact their body burden in a way that would just keep adding to that level of toxicity. We know that a lot of these cleaning products, with this whole pandemic thing, we're going to rub ourselves in bleach and Lysol, which is probably the most toxic stuff you can put in your body. Like, let's degrade our thyroid hormone with the Clorox and, all of these toxins that they're recommending. It's like, why don't we just put a little hydrogen peroxide in a squirt bottle and just spray that everywhere? It kills so much, and add some thieves oil to it, and there you go. Or use some, vinegar. It's like, we're trying to improve our immune systems by using more chemicals, and that's not the case. That is not the case. That's not helpful. So anyways, yeah, I would say start with your home, and the air quality in your home is imperative. So making sure that you're not breathing in mycotoxins from mold, looking at, your roof, looking at the walls, looking at, the kitchen, bathrooms, all of these areas where there's wet areas that could potentially be, you have these small leaks, or even in the tile in your bathroom. If you notice mold or mildew growing behind it, that most often than not, if you pull that tile off, there'll probably be mold behind there. So you have to be an investigator in your own home and clean your air ducts. Most people don't do this. You should be cleaning your air ducts at least every 2 years to get all of those particulates out of the ductwork so that you can be breathing in clean air. You can take it a step further with like a HEPA filter or an ultraviolet light filter that you can actually put onto your HVAC unit. The ultraviolet light ones, they're about $1,000 that you can stick on there that will filter all of the air through, put it through an ultraviolet source to kill all the microbes and such and the dust particles. So there's different things you can do. They have the plug-in units for, HEPA filters. But really, it's the air you're breathing and the water you're drinking as well. So if you're drinking tap water, please stop because it's fluoridated and chlorinated, and that impacts your thyroid hormone. So if you look at the periodic table of elements, the halogen family of elements, so where iodine gets kind of fits into how we make thyroid hormone, that is replaced with chlorine and fluorine if you're drinking chlorinated and fluorinated water and using fluorinated toothpaste and such. So you're impacting your own innate thyroid function if you're putting these things into your body. So making sure you're drinking clean water is huge, and you can do like a reverse osmosis system under your kitchen sink. You know, you should probably remineralize it with some sort of minerals to help balance out the pH. But that, for, you know, to start is a good, that's kind of like a good jumping off point in order to kind of take care of your home.
Yeah, and actually, I've done a lot of the things that you've said. The water and the air are two of the big ones. When I first moved to Minnesota 18 years ago, truly for the first year, I had a headache every single day that got to the point where I thought, you know, I had a migraine. And went to the doctor. They sent me to the neurologist, knocked on my knees, knocked on my elbows, wanted to give me an antidepressant for my headaches. And I went, what? And as I started to do some research, it turns out that I'm allergic to everything that grows here. I'm not from here, so my body, it was new to my body. So I made sure that I did research on one of the better air purifiers and water systems. And it's amazing how, at this point, I don't think about it because I've taken care of it. When I go away, which of course I haven't in the last 8 weeks, I can tell a difference within 2 days. I feel different. So the change in your air and the change in your water in your home, I know personally really does make a huge benefit. It's a real benefit. So I appreciate that. We are running into the last few minutes of our time here. So just wanted to kind of regroup. For each of the experts, if you would, when you get a second, type in your information in the group chat. I will put this program will be on Facebook, and each of you will be able to share it with your audience. So just really want to make sure that we have everybody's contact information. In the last 2 minutes, anybody who has questions, who has comments, anything to add? I'm unmuting everybody. Okay.
That was fantastic. I mean, both of you, I got so much out of that. I'm curious, Dr. Hayman, do you do a lot of hormone testing? I mean, I would guess you probably have some way to be assessing that.
Yes. So,
as far as sex hormone.
Yes. So if they have insurance, we try to run it through their insurance and do blood testing. And I check progesterone to estradiol ratios, free and total testosterone, DHEAS. For thyroid, I check all of the thyroid antibodies, free T3, reverse T3, TSH, and free T4. I try to do through the insurance as much as possible. If we're going to do non-insurance types of testing, my favorite is urine testing for sex hormones. I specifically like Dutch urine hormone test kits because it looks at the active hormones and in conjunction with the metabolites to see how patients are actually excreting. So I try to do my best with blood, and I can usually do really well with that. Estrogens aren't so great, estradiol with blood, you know, in terms of accuracy, but we make do. I mean, when we run progesterone to estradiol ratios, that gives us at least a good baseline kind of foundation for, you know, what we're looking at.
Awesome.
Thank
Very
you.
thorough.
Yeah, there's so many out there. It's hard to know.
Yeah. You know, the Dutch urine hormone, that's a great one.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people recommend that. I didn't know if it was comparable to like a blood spot, you know, like a capillary. And then some people love saliva testing, you know, like a long panel, like a month-long panel. So I was curious what you like.
Yeah. Typically I try to run as much through insurance and just do regular blood through LabCorp, Norquest.
Sure.
Yeah, we can get great information from that, really.
Wow.
It's just how you're looking at it with your eyes.
This is really interesting. You know, I know we could continue, and that's the beauty of these conversations. You know, we can take these offline. We can, you know, we're here every month to, you know, to ask questions and answer questions. And that really is, I think, the beauty of what we're doing with Living Healthy List is really we're a place for mostly women and a few smart men to, to get the answers to their questions from people that are trustworthy, who are experts, who really are trying to do the right thing to help their patients and their clients. So thank you everyone for being with us today. Dr. Jessica, Dr. Stacy, Lorraine, thank you so much. To those of our audience, thank you ladies for being here live with us. This is a monthly forum, the Wonder Series. We are here every second Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Next month, June, is Men's Health Month. So we're going from Women's Health Month to Men's Health Month. And I think this is going to be really an interesting conversation because we're always, as always, thinking outside the box. I've got some interesting new experts to connect with. So we will be here next month. I think it is June the 9th. So please join us again for the Wonder Series, where we ask you to think outside the box and ask the questions that you need answered to live that happy, healthy lifestyle that you are looking for. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.